One of 8 billion, down in the mud, strange children, lonely and lost, but we still run. Fight cause we must, we kill and we survive. Poisonous raindrops, we hope for the day when the rain stops. Until then we stay under grain rocks and live with our pain, just trying to stay alive. The sky is falling down, been raining for centuries. They say that it's meant to be, but you are not alone, and we're not out of hope. We'll get out of the rain we go. Out of the rain, you know, we're running away from home. No, we can't stay no more. We leave this world behind. Out of the rain, you know, we're running away from home. And no, we can't stay, we're on our way, and then one day we're gone. Far beyond the raindrops, far beyond the raindrops. And you know they'll chase us, we gotta hide our traces. And no one can see our faces, and no one can see what we're about to do. The sky is falling down, we're trapped in reality, on our way to insanity, on our way. But you are not alone, and we're not out of hope. We'll get out of the rain we go. Out of the rain, you know, we're running away from home. No, we can't stay no more. We leave this world behind. Out of the rain, you know, we're running away from home. And no, we can't stay, we're on our way, and then one day we're gone. Far beyond the raindrops. Far beyond the raindrops. Far beyond the raindrops. Every time you do.
Hey guys, it's Chase. Let's check out some of these charts real quick for some crypto as well as some stocks. I'm gonna start off with stocks because there's quite a few that people are wanting updates on, very specifically Tesla. So let me switch over real quick, make sure I have the list of things to look at. There we go. So diving in on Tesla here, okay? Let me switch screen, Sorry, there's a lot of lines on this chart. If you want to understand what each of the lines means, look at the description because each one has specific significance. Sorry, can't talk. Need more coffee. My main thing I'm watching right now on Tesla, from my standpoint, both sides here are pretty dangerous to be in from a call or puts perspective as a buyer. I'm not going to recommend people jump to calls or puts here on Tesla either way until we get confirmation of which direction this is going to break. And I mean, this is a good example of how I kind of maintain a non-biased approach to my recommendations on trading. So there's a bullish setup here for sure with this bullish pennant that we are looking at here on Tesla, but also there is a lot of downside risk here if we can't maintain and push higher here, and this invalidates. So if we break this green trend line here on Tesla, it can get a little bumpy, and then it can get really bumpy if we see a harder sell-off. We've had several news points this week for Tesla. I'm watching closely, like I mentioned yesterday on the live stream. There's a lot of hesitancy and movement going on with the options right now I think because a lot of people sold really spiked call options over here on these initial moves, and Theta has just been hammering those options the last couple of weeks. Even though it feels like we've had these big bullish spikes, if you were to go look at a premium for like a 1220 call option, even at like a 350 strike, and you look at what the premium has done over the last 2 to 3 weeks, you'll see that it's got just slammed completely and totally. So, which is exactly why we sold covered calls a few weeks back, which we bought to close on. But for people that wanted to hedge their share positions, that's a good way to kind of hedge it. That being said, right now in Tesla, what am I watching? So we've got this one trend, and I wrote a little bit of a detailed analysis that was easier to reference earlier today. You've got this major trend going on here from October. So this is our current prevailing uptrend, right? You also, and I'm going to go ahead and just hide these drawings for the moment because I know that it's busy, just to show you this. So if you look, you zoom out on Tesla. Actually, we're just going to do the drawings. Y'all just have to bear with me as we look through it. So you can see this low. If I look to weekly, maybe it's a little bit less busy as we look at it. And you'll have to ignore the annotations there, but you can see this uptrend that we've been in since last, what was that? Not last quarter, April 2024 is our current trend, and then you've got this larger time frame uptrend that we've been in for years. But the real significant ones that I'm watching right now are the current active trends for this year. So zooming in, if we break to the downside of this bullish pennant that we have going on with Tesla, we're looking at minimum, probably a gap fill at that 324.68 gap that was lingering. That being said, if we break this bullish pennant, you're going to get bearish momentum that comes into play, especially if selling volume picks up. So you want to be really careful with that move. I'm not actively saying by any means to trade Tesla puts on an initial break or anything like that. I'm still in my Tesla shares. I'm maintaining them long. I'm not selling calls or puts or anything like that against them just yet. I'm waiting to see how this pans out. Just so y'all see kind of the bullish move too, let me explain that. So a conservative measured move for this bullish pennant right now would put us at that 404.82, which is kind of the previous peak main resistance level we have. We did hit the previous high, what was that? 413.29 was the previous all-time high before all the splits and everything. So that's definitely within range too if we get the bullish breakout to the upside. That being said, we need some sort of significant positive catalyst on Tesla to get that bullish momentum and breakout to the upside. And with these types of setups, you need increasing momentum and volume with that breakout in order to sustain and push through that supply zone. So if we've got very weak volume in the range and it's tinkering up here in this higher level, what I'm typically looking and watching for is what is happening over on the well movement on the flows for the options. If I see that as we push back up into that resistance level at, what is that, 358.64 there, if I see lots of selling of call options with spike premiums there, that's going to tell me that they're expecting this thing to reject and push lower, which is typically, that's where a lot of the larger funds are making their money, is on those options premiums as compared to like on shares directly. Even though I think retail thinks it's the other way around, it's really not. You can see the billions that they make whenever they sell the premiums and they just let them decay. So like I was saying, minimally if we break this bullish pennant to the downside here, then we're looking at a gap fill at 324.68. If we do end up breaking this uptrend line as well, which is our uptrend that we established since October, it's very likely that we're going to dive a lot harder. The first step and stop here is going to be that 324.68 level, like I said. But from there, there's not a whole lot of significant support in this zone. So you've got a bit of a support there at 298.33 and that psychological level of $300. But that being said, if that level cracks, Tesla tends to build momentum when that level cracks. And if you don't believe me, go look back at any of the previous times that we came off that 300 level and how hard Tesla dives once it breaks that 300 level. So going 300 down to that sub 270 range happens fast and quick with Tesla if it does break to the downside. So that's why I'm not recommending people try to swing calls just yet. That combined with there's a lot of other things you can trade right now that don't require nearly as much premium. Tony throwing all of his requests and screenshots of all his active trades over in the Discord. Like, here, look at all these. I'll try to look at them, Tony. But there's a lot of other things in order to get into a safe enough Tesla call option or put option. Same thing with NVIDIA, that is on into 2025 and gives you room to breathe. You're looking at like a minimum of like $1,000 for a reasonable strike that has sufficient room to move. And for me, with $1,000 premium or $1,000 in capital, there's just so many other active tickers, especially kind of in the mid to non-mega cap realm, that you can make significant gains with without nearly as much risk as what we're looking at right now on Tesla and NVIDIA. So, like I said, still a bullish setup there, but there's a lot of downside risk here too. Between all the news coming out with Elon getting his stuff kind of rejected by the judge again, as well as the EV credit's gone. Some news was released earlier today around Cybertruck in the factory or something, I don't know. But just something to be cautious on, because if we do end up breaking down hard here, it's not unrealistic at all to see us move towards that gap fill at that 255.28 level. It's kind of the beauty and the drawback of Tesla is it can rip fast, but it can drop fast as well. So it's great from a option seller side. If we get another big solid green day, especially if we pump up into here and I see a rejection, I'm selling covered calls on my shares again because I want to hedge, but also I'm going to be watching to see what the hedge funds and whales are doing because I want to follow their moves. NVIDIA, jumping over here. So NVIDIA is getting some retracement here, but keep in mind we are still kind of on this downside break after breaking that initial trend. So NVIDIA is wanting to try here, but we'll look at SMH again here in a minute to see what semiconductors are doing as a whole. You've got a little bit of lag going on there. We don't have a whole lot of volume. So same thing as the breakout that we wanted to see on some of the other things. You need to increase in volume and buying pressure to really push through a supply zone. And right here, it looks like that we're floundering a bit. I'm also watching because a lot of the derivatives are kind of tied in with the dividend, and we don't really have a momentum push going on right now. So just be careful on NVIDIA. I'm not saying that we complete that downside move. I'm saying right here is a good place to kind of be cautious. I'm not actively trading calls or puts on NVIDIA for the same reasons I'm not trading calls or puts actively as a buyer on Tesla. The premiums are just a bit out of whack for the risk to reward for me. That's great if some people can go ahead and want to take the risk and jump in and, you know, make 20-30% gains on a contract that costs that much money. For me, again, I'd rather put my capital elsewhere, and it makes a bit more sense. And the people that kind of follow the trades and stuff I do as well, I don't want to expose them to that kind of risk on something that if it does tank, it won't recover. So watching this closely on NVIDIA, because we do still have a bullish setup on it as well, with a measured move up in the 175 range if we can retake that trend. But the downside move on this thing, if we do continue and move, is going to be a retest of maybe that 130. Let me zoom in. A retest right here of that 130.98 range, which also has confluence with that larger uptrend. So that's definitely something to keep an eye on here. You can see I've got it marked for the confluence level where you have trends coming in alignment with overall support zones. So definitely something to keep a watch on here, since it looks like we broke and now we're retracing to potentially reject at this previous zone. We also have gap lingering down here at 119.38, and like we've talked about previously, gaps don't always get filled, but there's like a 70 to 80% probability that a daily gap does get filled. So just something to keep in mind with those lingering and semiconductors. As of right now, there's still a lot of uncertainty going on within that realm with the tariffs and everything else for next year. So if you look at SMH, it's trying to push up here, but actually we still have this massive ugly head and shoulders set up here, and this is valid head and shoulders. I just have the line drawn here instead of mapping it directly. I think if I probably turn on this AI generated one, it even finds the same pattern here. So you can see it's identifying the same thing. It also identified a bit of a double top here with this downtrend line. So minimally what I would be looking for here on SMH is see how it handles this zone to see if we form yet another lower high here. Do we reject at that trend and move lower, or can we break out of this trend and move higher? I'm still bullish on NVDA, just like I am Tesla, so don't get me wrong or misunderstand what I'm conveying with that. I'm just saying risk to reward right now is high. There's a lot of uncertainty going on with tariffs and the implications and what that's going to mean for a lot of the chip stocks. SMH has typically been a really solid indication of the semiconductor realm in general, rather than looking at something like NVIDIA or AMD specifically by themselves. So not saying we play out the head and shoulders, but that pattern is there, so I refuse to basically ignore that and only look for upside potential. You need to take into consideration both setups that are available in the chart. That's how you play safe. That's how, if you're long, you can hedge accordingly, because that downside risk is there and you are exposed to it. So jumping over here as well to the list of stocks, and again, also if you want me to look at some and you're not dropping them in the discords, any of the 3 discords I put the link in, feel free to throw it up in the chat. Let's see, I'll start. Analyzer put his in the chat as well, so we've got some there. Negative news will impact Tesla. So Joe, back to that, like, typically my take on the news with Tesla is, like, I don't look for, same with any stock, I don't look for the news to cause a move that makes the trade in my favor. Like, that's a risky and kind of silly way to go about trading, and it'll end up burning you. More so, I just kind of take into consideration the news and keep that in mind as I'm referencing the technicals, because if you're at a key level that has some kind of catalyst that comes into play, whether it's a positive or a negative catalyst, that can serve to break or play out a given pattern you have on the chart. So I really look at it as more of a catalyst reference rather than we got negative news on Tesla, therefore we see a 3% drop. Like, that's just not typically how stuff plays out, and oftentimes people even kind of have a move baked in beforehand because someone always knows that something is going on. So on that note, let me jump over to, let's see, we got Best Buy, Uber, PayPal in the live stream chat. We've got Palantir and several others over in the other chats. I gotta look at Palantir because, like, our long-term swing calls went absolutely freaking nuts today, and I know I've said that on other recent streams. I didn't even look at what the peak percentage gain was on it. I just know that the $40 calls that we entered last December went over 3,700% gains today. So that was like my most ridiculous and enjoyable long-term swing trade of 2024 so far. Looking for what our 2025 long-term swing trade is going to be that throws off the killer gains. But even the $65 calls that we got in for December 20th, we got in those just recently. They're over 2,500% gains. So throwing that out there because Palantir still has so much bullish momentum going on with it. And like I said on the stream yesterday, I was concerned a bit and wanted to see a bit of a move because where we were consulting in the zone, but volume was lacking. And like I said yesterday on the stream, I would like to see a strong uptick in volume as we push strong through and pierce that resistance level. And look what we have today. We have a big fat green volume candle followed by this massive green fat candle that blew right through the resistance level. So that was a beautiful technical move, and this is yet another bull flag breakout with a measured move up in that $85+ range. I have not sold any of my shares on Palantir through this ride. My cost basis is like $17 and some cents or something. I can't recall. I'll have to look, but I haven't even sold covered calls against them just because there hasn't been a loss of momentum yet to justify selling covered calls and the risk to reward. So riding out my shares here as well as the runner calls that I mentioned for January. I haven't evaluated yet whether or not I'm going to add to further out calls just yet, just because I have exposure through the shares. That being said, we just jumped into the $75 calls last week on the consolidation and the support break, so this is looking good. I want to see what happens in the next couple of days. If we can maintain the buying volume that we saw today, similar to whenever we got the breakout these previous times, then this sucker's going to keep ripping. And Like, it's a solid stock. It serves as a wartime stock. They have AI exposure. Overall, I think it's just one of my favorite longer term holdings. So technical setup remains very bullish here. We'll see what plays out this week. See if it maintains the momentum. Wouldn't even be sad to see a back test and retest of that level that was the previous resistance level and bounce off that as support. If I do see a pullback and see it starting to show signs of a bounce on that level, I'm probably going to add to some calls just because this thing is going to continue to rip. So definitely looking great on Palantir here. Next ticker, let me look at the list. So Walmart, Intel. Yeah, let's look at Intel real quick because I know we trade some calls on it. I think most of us locked gains, at least on that initial breakout. And yeah, it did end up breaking that other retest too, with the news of the CEO getting fired. So yeah, we traded the initial breakout there and that went well. I think some people even trade this kind of retest when we re-entered and that worked out well. But yeah, as of right now, we do have a break of the trend yet again. So Intel, we'll see. I need to look into the news more to see what the next steps are because the CEO getting fired is one thing, but ultimately, when that happens with a lot of companies, you may have new leadership already coming into place, which we'll see what happens, right? If that happens, especially if we can hold the support zone that we held previously in that $21 to $22 range, I might consider adding and going calls again, but further out. I've been holding off on shares just because I wasn't sure how this played out overall. So quick, easy exposure for the short-term setups. But yeah, they're now looking for a new CEO, Matt. May take a couple of weeks. Yeah. So, I mean, based off of my prior experience, being through a few different things at tech companies in similar situations, they're shortlisted already. Like, they already have somebody in mind. They probably have someone already kind of ramping up and getting them prepared. It's unlikely that they haven't considered or thought through it at all. So we'll see what happens in the coming weeks. I mean, by no means am I telling everybody to like YOLO heavy on Intel because y'all know that's just not my way. But I'll keep watching this and see what happens. See if we build another bullish setup. I probably won't trade puts on it just because the IV's probably still spiked off the drop. And risk to reward's probably not great. It might be a good candidate if someone wants to be long or potentially doesn't mind holding shares on it. It might be a good candidate to sell cash secured puts on if you've got an account with like $2,500 that you're wanting to sell some. So just one thing to keep in mind. I know Tony's been looking for some different options, not options, but different candidates to sell cash secured puts on to get used to selling premiums, and Intel might be one that makes sense if we get a harder push and sell off. But let's see, what's the next one we got here? We have PayPal. Let's look at PayPal real quick. So PayPal is still playing the same bullish breakout that we had before. It completed that measured move of that bull flag beautifully. Same thing as what we saw on Palantir a while back. So what I would like to see on PayPal is, for one, it already filled this gap, it looks like, so I need to change that to a gap fill. If it can hold and bounce at that support level right there and move higher, that's solid. That's a great technical move. I wonder what patterns this thing's seeing, if any. So it actually tagged that breakout of the falling wedge. Nice. And then you can see also it's got a triangle pattern that it bounced off of, and that's what it's calling up here for that level. So again, I only use that just as kind of a secondary vetting of things I'm seeing on the chart. I'm not going to make a trade decision based off that tool. So, oh, you mentioned GameStop, Tony. I got to look at GameStop because, like, y'all saw me enter some calls on it. I couldn't help myself. So, keep watching PayPal. We'll see what it does in this range. If it consolidates and moves higher, that's great. If it breaks supports and kind of starts to lose that bullish setup it's got, then I would be more concerned. But let me jump over to GameStop real quick, because GameStop has earnings. Was it the 10th? Yeah. So we entered some longer term swing calls on it as a lotto today, but I might still have to consider some shares on this thing this week. I don't know why. I need to go dig into the options flows a bit more on it, but overall that setup's still looking solid, and my inner ape from 2021 wants to buy GameStop, so I might buy a couple hundred shares of GameStop and sell covered calls on it, or I might just ride them out and see what happens. But as of right now, it looks like it's holding that support zone, so we'll see what happens. I don't know if this thing's flagging any patterns or not. Yeah, it's got a double bottom and a falling wedge, which I mean, this is why I use this as kind of a secondary confirmation thing on a pattern I see, rather than taking exactly how it is saying, because as you can see, that pattern didn't play out as quickly as it was anticipating. So moving that out of the way. Yeah, GameStop watching those levels. I might add to my call position on that. Make sure I cover all the tickers. The ask is there any way to access all my charts real time and trading view? Yes. Here, let me do this to make life easy for you. Right here on the live stream. Losing copy link. There we go. How about ciao? There you go. So if you take that link, you should be able to actually go directly to my charts, and it shows everything on it. And I know that also a lot of my lines and wording is hard to see on some of the screenshots, because I'm taking the screenshots on like high resolution 32-inch monitors, and then when you look at it on mobile, it can make weird pixelation, especially on Facebook and stuff. But you should be able to access the charts on TradingView even with like a free account. You don't have that premium like the one I'm using. But even with just a free TradingView account, you should be able to go to that link and see the charts real time. If you actually go over to the right side, you can click on the watch list as well, and you should be able to click through the charts for several of my watch list on there if you want to reference those. So I also put them over in the ethical trading and like each ticker specific channel. I try to put pretty frequent updates of screenshots of the charts for each of those tickers, and I've got them organized by ticker to make it easier to find. So yeah, James, I can look it up for you here in just a second. Let me look at Uber real quick for guys. Josh asked which TradingView tier I'm using, so I've got I think that's the top tier one, not the like enterprise one, but whatever the top individual tier is. Their Black Friday special was like fantastic, so I went ahead and just shifted over from the monthly and just bought the annual Black Friday deal, but I'm using the top one. I mean, honestly, you can get by. I used the free one for a good while because I was still doing a lot of charting in other apps, but you can get by totally using the free one. You just don't have access to as many indicators, which isn't that big a deal, because honestly, I think a lot of newer retail traders probably shouldn't be using like 15 indicators on their charts. You'll notice that most of my charts maybe have 1 or 2 or 3 indicators, but I'm not muddying up my charts with like all the MACD and the time to squeeze. Like, I've noticed over the years, simplicity is much better, and it made me a more consistent and successful trader by not trying to use a bunch of indicators to validate something. Lots of false positives. So, oh yeah, the highest tier 70% off. Yeah, if it's still on that deal, buy it. I'm sorry, I shouldn't tell you just to buy something, but it's a great deal. And like, I think the TradingView functionality, like, it's one of my favorite tools to use. I need to set up and tie in with Tasty Trade to use on TradingView, but Uber is what we're going to look at next, right? Let's see. I know my daughter's got gymnastics here in a few minutes. I'm going to try to crank through a few more. So Uber, I know Tony was messing with Uber. It's trying to hold that breakout of that current trend thing there. I'm not actively in a call trade or anything on Uber, but I would be careful, especially if it can't kind of hold that zone, which it looks like it's going to test. What did that tag there? Like a minor support right there in that range. I would look, actually it's a major support because it's over here. And if y'all are trying to figure out why does Chase Charter, would he draw the way he did, there's not a perfect exact way that everyone draws their lines and when they're charting. Typically for me, I'm looking for historical reference points that have had 3+ tests to be considered a major on the daily. No, I haven't done SoFi yet, Vanya. I'll pull it up here in a second because I'm liking some SoFi and Affirm and a couple of those other mid tiers as well. So I'll knock that out here in a second. But yeah, Uber, that's the levels for Tony and people that are trading that, so you can reference those. I won't spend a whole lot of time digging in. SoFi is still in this awesome bullish breakout here, and similar to what we looked at on Palantir, you've got a nice breakout here of a bull flag. We've got consolidation in the zone, potentially building yet another bull flag. Curious if I look at this thing, what it's showing. It's not flagging any of the patterns yet, but yeah, as of right now, I mean, we're building out another bull flag, it looks like, on SoFi. You can see that it made that little short-term double top, which would consolidate, but if you look here, this is actually the current bull flag. I'll draw it on the 4 hours so you can see this. If I was going to draw this like super conservatively, you could draw it based off of like this zone, but actually, in reality, this is like the current key resistance it looks like that we have in play. So like I wouldn't call that breakout if we push above that, because you can see it already kind of rejected on that previous move. But what I would look for here, depending on how the consolidation plays out, because like I said, I like to look for the most conservative move of the given setup that I can. So with this, I'd be looking for something like that to see if it breaks out to the upside. Because you got, and not to be confused with like a rising wedge or a bearish ascending triangle, because you can have bullish or bearish ascending triangles. The thing that's important with this is the trend heading into it, because right here, just like what we saw in Palantir, you're looking for bullish continuation. So for one, I'd like to see an increase in buying volume as we push for a breakout on this. So look at your current SoFi setup, and now look at Palantir, and think through how Palantir has moved over the last several months, right? So what I'm looking for on SoFi would be something similar to what we've seen several times here, where we consolidate, then we get a nice big green fat volume candle, and we push up higher to break out. So that's what I'd be looking for on SoFi, is can we consolidate in that zone? Honestly, my feelings would not even be hurt if we pulled back and retested this bull flag. I know some people probably don't want that and they might freak out. When I've got a nice longer term bullish setup like this though, like I'm all for being able to add to the position whenever I get a nice little pullback that respects the trend like that. So definitely something to keep an eye on. That's also why I phase into my positions, my longer term swings. That way, if we do pull back and we retest here, I can add a second buy to my longer term calls and still ride the longer term large bull flag. So let's see, other stocks, PayPal, Uber. I'll look at Best Buy real quick for you, just because we started the chart yesterday and I haven't looked at it today to see if there's any big change. I mean, yeah, you've got that fat red candle. I told you how I felt about Best Buy yesterday. We'll see how it plays out, but ultimately right now it's in a downtrend. We'll see if it holds that support range. I'm not in calls or puts or anything like that on Best Buy right here, but that thing can drop. It also can drop a lot further if it loses that support zone. So same levels it looks like are being traded for Best Buy. The app, I was worried that it was app loving. So I know this thing's made people like ridiculous money over the last few months. I haven't done a lot of investigation into the company to understand a whole lot about it, but I can tell you from like a technical standpoint, let me do this on app. I'm going to go separately chart this thing out, and then I'll drop and share it, and I'll add a ticker specific channel for it, so that you can reference the chart. But that way I don't spend the last like 5 minutes of the live stream drawing. Rather, I can check on a couple of these other tickers that we actually already are actively trading. But I will do app for you. Please remind me also, if I don't get it to you like first thing tomorrow, shoot me a message, or like put it on the Discord, and I'll pull it up for you there. Let's see, make sure I'm pulling up these other tickers real quick. Tony, I'm not even gonna look up Moderna chart, dude. Like I told you, Moderna's like one of those things that I feel like a lot of people chase it, hoping for some kind of pandemic breakout or viral outbreak, and it's just not going to play out that way. It burns more people, I think, on that setup. Hood, I'm still in my runners on Hood because it's maintained the support levels in the range. So ultimately on Hood, you've got this huge bullish setup that we had. But you can see here, just like I mentioned for SoFi and Palantir and some of the others, we haven't lost the bullish setup here. I know it's easy for people to feel like we have. If you look at it and if you draw a trend line like this, it's real easy to get into panic and be like, oh, we lost a trend, I need to panic sell. And I'm saying cover your cost basis as soon as you possibly can is the good trading rule. But just because you get a temporary dip below the trend doesn't mean that the bullish momentum and the bullish setup is gone. I mean, y'all saw that on Palantir firsthand when we came out of like the $35 range and people were kind of bailing on it and then exiting and not re-entering, and I was chilling and riding my calls as well as chilling and riding my shares. Ideally, we would have some kind of bullish or some kind of catalyst whatsoever to help sustain volume on this. There's not an event-driven catalyst here, but there is a catalyst that a lot of people aren't thinking of, and it's crypto. So, and I know we are like out of time, so I'm not going to dive into like crypto because y'all know I could talk about crypto for 3 hours. Ended up talking with some guys at Bible study this morning about crypto for quite a bit because one of those guys is big into crypto as well that I didn't know. But a lot of retail traders actively trade crypto through Robinhood. Whether you should or shouldn't, regardless, like there's nothing wrong with buying crypto on Robinhood or Coinbase. You pay a bit more because the fees that are baked in, but also like Hood is where most retail traders are comfortable and feel safe. What I do recommend is if you're going to buy crypto on Hood, transfer it off to a cold storage wallet or a like a Ledger Nano or something like that, or a Trezor. Any of those are really the point, because not your keys, not your crypto. So if it's sitting in an exchange wallet, regardless of how safe you feel like the exchange is, it's not safe. Transfer your stuff that you're holding long term off to your wallet that's not connected to the internet, and then if you really need to sell some later, you can connect your Ledger or Trezor to your device, and then you can, sell accordingly from the wallet. But I know that personally has helped me as well by having a lot of my longer term holdings on separate hardware wallets, because it's not easily accessible to where I can just, click sell real quick. I have to actually type in like the long code that's on any of my ledgers, so therefore they just stay in the safe most of the time is kind of what happens. But all that being said, that is serving as a positive catalyst for Hood. If you kind of keep looking at Hood and the movement you see there, the crypto movement is helping that quite a bit. Retail traders are going to be flocking over here, and I'm not saying that retail traders as a whole are driving the movement of crypto and other things, because at the end of the day, that a lot of that's institutional and well movement. What I'm saying is that transactional volume and movement that you see on Hood is driving value and benefit for Hood. So that's why you're seeing a lot of bullish movement here with Hood, and we should continue to see that. That's why we're in long-term calls. I might actually buy some shares on Hood. I don't know yet. I know people are feeling like they're buying the top, but you're really not. I don't know if anybody else was in Hood way back here, but we're not at the top, and we're actually coming off of a potential cup and handle setup. So Hood's still looking good and rocking. I haven't looked at Mara or Wolf yet. Let me look at those real quick, and then I'll have to call it wraps because my daughter's got gymnastics. But I do want to talk about Mara real quick and Riot, because it's going to be the same thing across pretty much all the crypto stocks, what I'm about to say. So keep in mind what I've mentioned multiple times on Facebook, Discord, these live streams, and multiple other places over the last few weeks and months related to end of the year tax loss harvesting with crypto and no wash sell rule. So you will have people that will sell crypto to secure paper loss, and then they will microchip pauses CHIPS Act application after scaling back plans. Semiconductors are going to keep taking hits, guys. Sorry. So crypto, a lot of these crypto things you're going to see like dips that immediately get rebought, and that's why, like, when you look at Bitcoin or any of the others right now, before I kind of reference back over here, we get these rapid dips like what happened this morning, and just like I've mentioned multiple times before, people freak out, and then it's like we get this dip that immediately gets rebought, and it's not like what y'all are used to seeing where someone's buying the dip necessarily over in the stock realm. A lot of these quick movements that you see that are like these huge big spurts, if you were to actually go look at the wallet transactions that are taking place, because the blockchain is totally publicly available, if you go look at the whale flows and you can track that accordingly, you'll see the same wallet selling off a huge chunk to take a paper loss and immediately rebuying it. And, or maybe a few minutes later, a few days later, the same wallets end up picking it back up. So that, or they move it from one wallet to another and it looks like a sale transaction. But you can track all that stuff because the blockchain's totally publicly available. So, that's why I don't freak out like when we got these big dips this morning. We're still, if you look at Bitcoin and all these others right now, just like I've been saying, that's still a hella bullish setup. Like, that is a bull flag, and the measured move, that's a bull flag, and there's several other bullish setups here actually, but large measured moves, still more upside. So same thing for Mara, Riot, all the crypto mining stocks. You can't get hung up on the immediate movement, not like mashing Bitcoin or crypto identically, because that's just not how it works. Rather, you'll see the continuation in the movement. It'll come as it plays out more. So, for those of you that kind of traded back in 2021 and were in some of these, it's fun, at least for us that really love volatile stuff, because you kind of get these little teeter-totter moves, then all of a sudden it's just like a massive up-rip candle, similar to what we saw back in early November. Y'all thought that big green jump in the election pump was exciting. Look how small that little movement was compared to the move we had last year in November, December, as compared to what we had in 2021. So some of y'all have seen kind of the chart that I've drawn with and shown where the market psychology is of crypto right now. So like we're like over in this range if you want a comparable movement range for crypto at the moment. Mara and Riot are very profitable mining companies. They're going to continue to rip. It's one of those that this week and next week is kind of my focal point as we're ending out the year. I'm going to be focusing on adding longer term calls for both of those. The more we can consolidate and kind of trade flat, the better for me, because that means the premiums on those options is going to take a bit of a hit and chill out due to IV settling. And that's where I'm going to take my opportunity to buy more. So, entering and phasing in tomorrow, same thing with Riot. The levels that we've been watching on all these is exactly still intact. I mean, look, you can see yesterday, same thing right here. We held that support. We bounced right at that support yet again. So what you want to watch for on Riot and Mara and Coin and all those other crypto stocks right now is when you get a peak of some volume come into play, similar to what we saw on Palantir. It's going to be chill until a huge buying volume steps in, and all of a sudden you're just going to have a massive candle that blows through the supply zone. So definitely bullish on crypto stocks. That's why I'm not throwing a whole lot of money at stuff like Tesla and NVDA options, because 20 to 30% gains with super high risk seems interesting and all, I guess. But if I'm going to risk something that's a little bit more risky, these crypto stocks are a much better place to risk capital because it's a lot cheaper per contract, but also the return potential is significantly more than what you can see on NVIDIA and Tesla and the others right now. So I've got to wrap up the kind of session today because daughter's got gymnastics, but I appreciate all of y'all that have hung in with me. It looks like there's quite a few of y'all in here today, so please do hit the like, subscribe button. I really appreciate all y'all hanging in and chilling with me, asking questions. If y'all have any other stocks, questions, tickers that you want me to go through, feel free to reach out. I'll be happy to cover them for you independently, or if you want me to cover them in the next live stream, I can do that too. But wrapping it up, going to take care of the family. Everybody have a great evening. Thanks.